I never thought I'd be the guy whose world turned upside down by a betrayal like this. My name is Tom, and I've been married to Megan for 6 years. From the outside, our life looked perfect. We had a beautiful home in the suburbs, a dog named Max who was basically our child, and we both had stable jobs. Megan worked as a marketing executive, and I was a graphic designer. Everything was going fine until the cracks started to show. At first, it was just little things. Megan began coming home later from work more often and seemed distracted during our conversations. The first time I noticed something was off was when she started skipping our usual movie nights. Instead, she'd say she was handling a last-minute project at work. I tried to be understanding. Everyone has deadlines, right? But deep down, I felt an unsettling pit in my stomach. It was like a shadow creeping into our lives, and I couldn't shake it. The tipping point came when I found a strange number saved in her phone under a male name I didn't recognize. At first, I convinced myself it was just a work contact. But then, I saw her texting late at night, her face lit up by her phone screen, a smile creeping across her lips that I hadn't seen in a while. The moment I glanced over her shoulder and saw the name Lucas pop up, my heart dropped. Who the hell was Lucas? Was he just some work colleague, or was there more? In my gut, I knew there was something bigger going on. That weekend, I decided to follow her. I had to know the truth. I was a nervous wreck, driving around town trying to keep my distance without raising any suspicion. It was a Saturday afternoon when she left the house, dressed in that red dress I bought her for our anniversary. She looked stunning, but I wasn't thinking about that at the moment. I was focused on where she was going. After tailing her for what felt like an eternity, she finally parked in front of a small art gallery downtown. My heart raced. I parked a few blocks away and watched as she entered the gallery. I felt a mix of dread and determination. I knew I had to see what was happening, so I slipped inside. The gallery was packed with people admiring the artwork, but my eyes were glued to Megan. She was laughing and chatting with a tall guy, an artist from the looks of it. I recognized him from a few local exhibitions. His name was Lucas Miller, a guy who had a reputation for being charming and talented. As I stood in the corner, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I watched as Megan leaned in close to him, the way she used to lean into me when we were in love. It was sickening. I couldn't take it anymore. The rage built up inside me like a pressure cooker. I approached them, my heart pounding in my throat. "Megan," I shouted, and the crowd turned to look. She turned pale when she saw me, her smile dropping instantly. Lucas looked taken aback, confused at the sudden intrusion. "What are you doing here, Tom?" She stammered, a hint of defensiveness in her voice. "I could ask you the same thing," I shot back, my anger boiling over. "Care to explain why you're all cozy with Lucas?" Megan tried to brush it off. "It's not what it looks like. We're just discussing art, and art, is that what you're calling it?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You look like you're on a date." The confrontation turned ugly and the crowd began to disperse, leaving us in a bubble of tension. I could see the panic in her eyes. "It's nothing, you're overreacting, I swear." She pleaded, but her words felt hollow. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this, but I was also crushed. This was the woman I had loved, who had promised to spend her life with me. The betrayal felt like a knife to the gut. What was supposed to be a fun outing had turned into my worst nightmare, and I couldn't even process what was happening. I left the gallery that day feeling like my world was crumbling. I felt betrayed, lost, and angry. I spent the night replaying the moment in my head, the sight of her laughing with another man, the way she looked at him. It was a moment of realization that I'd never forget. The moment I knew my marriage was in jeopardy. But what do you do after you find out your wife is cheating? How do you handle the emotional fallout of such a betrayal? I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't just let this slide. I needed a plan, not just to confront her, but to reclaim my sense of self, my dignity. I decided that revenge was going to be my fuel. This might be the point where I should say I started plotting some grand scheme, but honestly, I was still reeling. The thought of confronting her again made my stomach turn. But I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. I had to think, to be continued. The following days were some of the hardest of my life. I felt like I was living in a fog, just going through the motions. I still had to go to work, take care of Max, and pretend everything was fine around our friends. But inside, I was a mess. I was angry, hurt, and most importantly, confused. I kept replaying that confrontation in my head, trying to piece everything together. Megan did her best to act normal. She would come home, kiss me on the cheek, and talk about her day as if nothing had changed, but I could see the tension in her eyes, the guilt lurking just beneath the surface. I knew she was lying, but I didn't have solid proof of the affair. Thoughts of Lucas invaded my mind constantly. I felt like a prisoner in my own home, and the resentment was building. One night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted hard evidence. I started digging. I went through her phone while she was in the shower, looking for any messages, pictures, or hints of her betrayal. It was a low point, but desperation can drive you to do things you never thought you would. After what felt like an eternity of searching, I found it, a thread of messages between Megan and Lucas that confirmed everything. They were planning secret meetups, and the messages were laced with flirtation and innuendo. My heart sank as I read through them. This was real. She was not only cheating but had been doing it for a while. That night, as she lay in bed beside me, I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. I was seething inside, fighting the urge to wake her and confront her right there. Instead, I took a few deep breaths and decided to bide my time. This would not be about just confrontation. I needed a plan. Megan was still wrapped up in her little world, seemingly unconcerned about the emotional whirlwind brewing inside me. I started to think about revenge, not just any revenge, but something that would make her truly understand the pain she had inflicted on me. After a few long nights of planning, I stumbled across an idea that felt perfect. Lucas was an artist, a big deal in the local art scene. His works were known for their vibrancy and creativity. But I also discovered that one of his paintings, a piece that had been ridiculed for being too abstract, had recently gone up for auction. It was dubbed the worst painting and had received a ton of negative press. An idea began to form in my head. I would buy that painting. Not just to make a point, but to show Megan that I could turn the tables in this twisted game. It was an act of defiance. I could take something she would find embarrassing and turn it into a symbol of my revenge. I went online and placed my bid on the painting, feeling a thrill rush through me as I confirmed the purchase. The thought of hanging that monstrosity in our home made me chuckle. It felt like a small victory, a way to regain some control over my life. When the day finally came for the painting to be delivered, I was anxious and excited. I couldn't wait to see her reaction. I imagined her face when she walked into our living room to find that ridiculous piece of art hanging on the wall. I could already see the confusion and shame wash over her as she realized the implications of my revenge. The delivery came while Megan was at work. I watched as the movers carefully brought the painting inside, and it was even worse than I imagined. Bright, clashing colors and chaotic strokes that looked like they had been made by a toddler. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. I hung it up prominently, right above the fireplace, making it the centerpiece of our living room. When Megan got home, I was eager to see her reaction. She walked in, her usual cheerful demeanor quickly fading as she took in the sight of the painting. Her eyes widened and I could see her processing what she was looking at. "What the hell is that?" she practically shouted, staring at the chaotic mess on the wall. "That, my dear, is the worst painting by Lucas Miller," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thought you'd want to see a piece of his work in person." She looked at me, then back at the painting, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. "You bought this? Why would you do something so stupid?" "Stupid? You think it's stupid?" I leaned back, letting that sink in. "I think it's a fitting reminder of what you've been up to, just a little something to hang in our home." Her face turned red with fury, and I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to come up with an excuse or a way to deflect the conversation. "You don't understand art. This is just—" "It's embarrassing, Megan," I interrupted, letting the emotion pour out. "Just like your affair is embarrassing, just like you. You think I wouldn't find out? You thought you could play me for a fool." The confrontation escalated quickly, her defensiveness flaring. She tried to downplay her actions, claiming it was all harmless and that it didn't mean anything. I was just looking for a bit of excitement. You wouldn't understand. She snapped. Excitement? Is that what you call sleeping with another man? You've shattered everything we built, and you think I'm just going to sit back while you play the victim. I could feel my voice rising, the hurt spilling out with every word. I was there, standing in our living room, a painting representing her betrayal now hanging prominently on the wall, and I felt a mixture of satisfaction and heartache. I had taken a stand, but the reality of what we were facing was just beginning to sink in. What was supposed to be a clever act of revenge turned into an emotional battlefield, and I realized this was only the beginning of a long, tumultuous journey ahead. I was determined to stand my ground, but the emotional weight of betrayal was heavy on my shoulders. To be continued. After that explosive confrontation, Megan stormed out of the living room, leaving me standing there, still simmering with anger. I felt like I'd unleashed a storm, and now I had to deal with the aftermath. The painting hung there, a vibrant reminder of her lies, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of twisted pride. It was a bold move, but I didn't know if it would actually lead to any change in our relationship. The days that followed were filled with tension. Megan avoided talking about the affair, but the painting became a point of contention. Every time I walked into the living room, I would see her glaring at it, her distaste palpable. It was like an ongoing battle between us. I reveled in the absurdity of it. I had turned the tables in a way she didn't expect, but deep down, I knew this was just a band-aid over a deeper wound. Megan tried to play it cool, pretending the whole situation didn't bother her as much as it did. On the surface, she acted like everything was back to normal. She came home from work on time, helped with dinner, and even tried to engage in casual conversation. But I could see the cracks forming in her facade. The way she flinched when I mentioned Lucas, or her awkward attempts to steer the conversation away from anything remotely related to her infidelity, told me she was struggling. One evening, after a particularly strained dinner, I brought up the painting again. "You know, I think it's really grown on me," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "It adds character to the room." Megan shot me a look, her eyes narrowing. "You're really going to keep bringing this up, aren't you? It's just a stupid painting, Tom. Just a stupid painting. No, it's a reminder of your choices, Megan." I snapped back, my patience wearing thin. "You thought you could have your fun while I stayed in the dark. This isn't going away anytime soon." She clenched her jaw, clearly frustrated. "You're making this so much worse. You think that painting is going to change anything. You're being ridiculous. Ridiculous. You're the one who decided to betray our marriage with a guy who paints drivel for a living." I shot back, my anger bubbling over. "You don't get to play the victim." Here, the tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. We were stuck in this cycle of avoidance, anger, and petty disputes. I realized that my plan for revenge was only a temporary distraction from the bigger issues we faced. I needed to confront the raw, painful emotions that came with her betrayal. So, I decided to dig deeper. I couldn't just hang a painting and expect everything to fall into place. I needed to know what was truly going on in her mind. I needed to understand why she felt the need to cheat in the first place. One night after a long day, I sat her down. "Megan, we need to talk about this. We can't keep dancing around it," I said, my tone firm but calm. She looked at me, her expression shifting from defiance to resignation. "What do you want me to say, Tom? I messed up. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say." "Sorry doesn't cut it," I replied. "Why did you feel like you had to go outside our marriage? Was I not enough for you? Did you really think Lucas was going to give you everything you wanted?" Her expression softened, and for the first time I saw genuine regret in her eyes. "I don't know," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "Things had been so routine between us. I felt like we were in a rut. I guess I thought I needed something exciting in my life, something that made me feel alive again." "So you thought cheating was the solution?" I probed, feeling a mix of anger and sympathy. "It was a mistake, Tom," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted to escape for a little while. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her admission struck a chord within me. I felt a tug of empathy but also a surge of anger. "So you thought you could just run away instead of talking to me? You could have communicated that we needed to shake things up. It wouldn't have been so hard to work on things together." Megan nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. I know, I messed up. I didn't think about the consequences. I was selfish." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our conversation hanging heavily between us. I could feel the walls around my heart slowly starting to crack. This was the first honest conversation we'd had since the affair came to light, and it felt both liberating and painful. But as much as I wanted to feel sorry for her, I couldn't ignore the betrayal. "You need to understand how much this hurt me, Megan. Trust is shattered, and it's going to take a long time to rebuild it. I can't promise that I'll just forget your mistake." "I don't want you to forget," she replied softly. "I want to make it right. I want to fight for us if you'll let me." Her sincerity caught me off guard. I had expected her to be defensive, but instead she was vulnerable. I could see she was genuinely remorseful, but could that erase the pain? Could I trust her again? I needed time to think, to process everything she had just laid bare. I didn't want to rush into decisions, but at the same time, I had to consider what I truly wanted moving forward. It was clear this was going to be a long journey full of ups and downs. I needed to decide whether I was willing to fight for my marriage or if the wounds were too deep to overcome. Maybe the painting was only a piece of a larger puzzle, a reminder that change was needed, but it wouldn't come without hard work. I knew I had a lot to figure out, but one thing was for certain. I wasn't going to let her walk away without putting in the effort this time. To be continued. The days turned into weeks, and Megan and I did our best to navigate this new reality. The painting still hung in our living room, a glaring reminder of her infidelity. But as much as I had initially reveled in its absurdity, I started to see it as a symbol of the mess we needed to untangle together. Megan began making an effort to communicate more openly. She initiated conversations, asked me about my day, and tried to plan date nights like we used to. I was surprised at her willingness to engage, but I was also filled with skepticism. Was this genuine change, or was she just trying to smooth things? One evening, she suggested we go back to that art gallery where I had caught her with Luca's. I was hesitant at first, but I could see the determination in her eyes. "I want to face this, Tom. I want to show you that I'm committed to making things right," she said. After some hesitation, I agreed. We arrived at the gallery, and my heart raced as I stepped inside. The memories of that day came flooding back, the feelings of betrayal still raw. But I also realized that we needed to confront the past to move forward. As we walked through the gallery, I could see Megan's nervousness. She reached for my hand and I let her, trying to put aside the anger that had consumed me. We wandered through the exhibits, engaging in small talk and commenting on the various pieces. It felt strange being there together, but I was hopeful that this could mark the beginning of healing. Suddenly, I spotted Lucas in the corner, engrossed in conversation with another patron. My stomach dropped, and a wave of anger washed over me. I could feel my body tense up as Megan noticed him too. She squeezed my hand tightly, fear evident in her eyes. "Let's just ignore him," she whispered, but I shook my head. "No, if we're going to do this, we have to face it," I replied firmly. Megan took a deep breath and we walked over to where Lucas stood. The moment he saw us, his expression shifted from casual interest to surprise. "Tom, Megan, what a coincidence," he said, forcing a smile. I could see the discomfort in Megan's face. "Not a coincidence, Lucas." "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. He looked taken aback, glancing between us. "About what?" "This isn't just between us anymore," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "You need to understand the impact of what you did. You hurt my wife, and in turn, you hurt me. This isn't just some fling you can brush off." Megan stood beside me, her expression a mix of anxiety and resolve. "I want to make it clear that what happened was a mistake, and I'm committed to fixing things with Tom," she added, her voice steady. Lucas shifted uncomfortably, clearly not expecting this confrontation. "I did mean for it to go that far," he said, attempting to defend himself. It was fun, you know. I didn't think you guys were that serious." His words felt like a slap in the face. "Fun? You think cheating is fun?" I shot back, my voice rising. "You think this is a game? You've messed with lives, man." Megan took a step forward, her voice trembling slightly. "I realize now that I made a terrible mistake. I hurt Tom in a way I can't even begin to express. This isn't something I can just brush off. I don't want you to come into our lives again. Lucas looked taken aback by her resolve. I didn't mean to. Enough, I cut him off. You had your chance. You can't just play with people's hearts and then act surprised when there are consequences. For a moment the three of us stood in silence, the tension palpable. I could see the regret in Lucas's eyes, but it didn't change what had happened. I felt a surge of power in that moment. I had faced the man who had trespassed into our marriage, and it felt liberating to stand my ground. After we left the gallery, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Megan looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and relief. "Thank you for standing up for us," she said quietly. "I had to," I replied. "We need to be honest with each other and confront whatever comes our way. This isn't going to be easy, but if we want to move forward, we have to be willing to face these uncomfortable truths." In the days that followed, Megan made a conscious effort to show me she was committed to rebuilding our marriage. She started attending therapy sessions, first individually, and then suggested we go together. I was surprised at her initiative but also apprehensive. Could therapy really help us heal? I agreed to go, and our first session was enlightening. We talked about the root causes of our issues, from communication problems to the way we had both neglected our relationship. The therapist guided us through exercises aimed at rebuilding trust and intimacy. I was surprised by how much I learned about myself and about Megan. One particular session stood out. We were asked to write down the things we appreciated about each other and share them. I hesitated at first but forced myself to think about the reasons I fell in love with her in the first place. Her laughter, her creativity, the way she made me feel alive. When it was her turn, Megan shared how much she valued my support and how she missed the connection we used to have. I could see her vulnerability, and it softened the anger I had been holding on to. But even with the therapy sessions and the efforts to communicate, there were still moments of doubt. I would catch myself replaying images of her with Lucas in my mind, and it would trigger the anger I thought I had buried. I found myself questioning whether I could truly forgive her and if things could ever go back to the way they used to be. One night, while we were lying in bed, I turned to her. "Megan, do you really think we can get through this?" She looked at me with sincerity. "I want to believe we can. I want to fight for us, Tom. You mean everything to me, and I know I messed up. I'll do whatever it takes to show you that." Listening to her, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could navigate this rocky path together, but it would take time, patience, and an enormous amount of work from both of us. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I realized that healing wouldn't happen overnight. I still had a long way to go in processing my emotions, but for the first time in what felt like ages, I was open to the possibility of reconciliation. To be continued. As the weeks turned into months, Megan and I continued our therapy sessions, and while progress was slow, we were learning to communicate more openly. The painting still hung in our living room, a reminder of the betrayal but also a testament to our journey. It served as a backdrop to our healing process, a symbol of the mess we had to confront together. Megan was dedicated. She actively sought ways to make amends, whether it was planning surprise dates, cooking my favorite meals, or simply being more present. I found myself slowly allowing the walls I had built around my heart to come down. I could see genuine effort on her part, and it warmed me in ways I hadn't expected. One evening, as we sat on the couch, I looked over at her. "You know, I appreciate what you've been doing. It hasn't gone unnoticed," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I'm just trying to show you that I'm serious about us. I've realized how much I took for granted before." We continued to talk about our feelings, the progress we were making, and I found myself reminiscing about the early days of our relationship, the laughter, the adventures, the dreams we shared. It felt good to reflect on the positive moments, even amidst the pain. But each time I thought we were making progress, a shadow of doubt would creep back in. I would still find myself haunted by the images of her and Lucas. The jealousy would rear its ugly head, and I'd struggle with feelings of inadequacy. One night, after a particularly difficult day at work, I came home feeling exhausted. I walked into the living room and stared at the painting. its chaotic colors seeming to mock me. Megan noticed my silence and came over, placing her hand on my shoulder. "What's wrong?" I sighed deeply. I don't know if I can shake this feeling. I still picture you with him and it eats away at me." Her expression softened and she moved to sit beside me. "I can't change what happened, Tom. I can only promise that I'm here now and that I want to move forward. You don't have to carry this alone." "I know," I replied, my voice filled with frustration. "But it's hard. I want to believe you, but I can't help but wonder if it's just a matter of time before you fall back into old patterns." Megan looked down, her voice trembling. "I understand why you feel that way. It's going to take time for both of us to heal, but I want to work through this together. I won't give up on us." We decided to take a weekend trip to a cabin in the woods, hoping to disconnect from the chaos of everyday life and reconnect with each other. It was an opportunity to breathe, to escape, and to find some peace. As we drove up, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was what we needed, a fresh start, however small. The cabin was rustic and cozy, nestled among towering pines with a beautiful view of the lake. We spent the first evening cooking dinner together, laughing as we fumbled through the meal prep. It felt refreshing to be in each other's presence without distractions. After dinner, we sat on the porch, looking out at the stars twinkling above us. It was one of those perfect moments where everything felt right. I turned to her. "This is nice, isn't it?" She smiled, her face illuminated by the moonlight. "It is. I've missed moments like this. It reminds me of how we used to be." As the night wore on, we talked openly about our dreams for the future, our hopes for a family, and the things we wanted to accomplish together. It was like peeling back the layers of our relationship, revealing the core of what had initially brought us together. But as the night deepened, the past crept back in. I found myself unable to ignore the nagging doubts that still lingered. "Do you ever think about Lucas?" I asked hesitantly. Megan paused, her expression shifting to one of seriousness. "I do. I think about how much pain my actions caused. It was a moment of weakness and I regret it every day, but I want to focus on us now." Her honesty struck me. I could sense the sincerity in her words, yet the fear of being hurt again loomed over me. "I want to believe you, but it's hard," I admitted. "I know," she said softly, taking my hand. "But I'm willing to fight for us. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that you're the one I want." That night, we shared our first kiss in months, gentle, tentative, but filled with meaning. It felt like a promise, a commitment to move forward together. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe we could overcome the darkness that had shadowed our relationship. As we settled in for the night, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was willing to try. I realized that healing wouldn't happen overnight, but maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. When we returned home, I noticed something had shifted. The painting, which had once felt like a weight, now seemed like a part of our journey, a reminder of the pain but also of the growth we had experienced. We started discussing things we could do to improve our relationship further, and I found myself more willing to explore those ideas. Despite the ups and downs, I began to feel more optimistic. The cracks in our marriage were still there, but they were beginning to be filled with understanding and a renewed commitment to one another. I could see that we both wanted this, and that was a powerful foundation to build upon. But just as I began to feel hopeful, life threw another curveball our way. To be continued. Just when I thought we were beginning to find our footing, life decided to remind me that healing is rarely a straight path. One evening, Megan received a text that made my heart drop. I watched as her face changed from casual interest to outright panic. She quickly put her phone down, but I had already seen the name on the screen, Lucas. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "It's nothing," she stammered, her eyes darting away from mine. "Nothing, it looked like something," I shot back, my voice rising despite my best efforts. "If it's nothing, then show me." She hesitated and the moment stretched painfully long. "It was just a message about an art event. I'm not going," she insisted, clearly flustered. The tension in the room was suffocating. I had been so focused on rebuilding trust that I didn't see how easily it could be shattered all over again. "Megan, you have to understand how this looks to me. You know I'm trying to trust you, but this feels like a betrayal all over again. I swear to you, Tom, it's not what you think, she pleaded, her eyes wide with fear. I've told him to leave me alone, but he keeps reaching out about a new exhibition. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to hurt you. But here we are. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration bubbling under the surface. You need to be honest with me. If there's even a hint of anything going on, I can't just sit by and wait for the other shoe to drop. Megan took a deep breath, tears filling her eyes. I'll block him, I promise. I don't want to hurt you anymore, I just want to fix us, she said, her voice trembling. I felt a mix of anger and sympathy. I could see that she was genuinely upset, but I also needed to protect myself. Do it now, I said, my tone firm. She nodded, pulling out her phone and blocking Luca's right in front of me. I watched her actions closely, hoping this would ease the tension between us. And for a moment it did. As she put her phone down, I saw a flicker of relief in her eyes. Thank you, I murmured, but deep down I still felt that gnawing worry. Would this really be enough? Could we even move past this? In the following days, Megan and I made an effort to reestablish our connection. We enjoyed our time together, going on hikes, making dinner, and even revisiting old hobbies that once brought us joy. Yet, every time I saw her pull out her phone, a pang of anxiety shot through me. One evening, we were cuddled up on the couch watching a movie when she turned to me, her expression serious. Tom, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think we'll ever be able to fully heal from this, or are we just going to keep circling back to it? It was a good question. I stared at her for a moment, weighing my words. I think we can heal, but it's going to take time. We have to continue being honest with each other and open about our feelings, even when it's uncomfortable. She nodded, looking thoughtful. I want that. I've realized how important communication is. It's what I didn't have before, and it's what I want to work on now. We spent the rest of the evening talking about our fears and hopes for the future. Megan shared her insecurities about my trust in her, while I articulated my need for transparency. As we talked, I felt a sense of hope for the first time in a while. I could see that we were both committed to rebuilding what had been broken. Weeks went by and we settled into a rhythm. We attended more therapy sessions, and each time I felt like we were peeling back layers of hurt and misunderstanding. We were learning how to communicate, how to be vulnerable, and how to support each other without judgment. Then one day I received a notification that the painting I had bought, Lucas's worst painting, would be showcased in a local art event. I hesitated, unsure of how I felt about it. Megan, the painting is going to be shown publicly, I said, my voice low. She looked at me, a mix of concern and understanding in her eyes. Do you want to go? I thought for a moment, then said, I think we should. It's part of this journey, and it might be good for us to confront the past instead of running from it. That Saturday, we arrived at the gallery. As we stepped inside, I felt a mixture of nerves and determination. The painting stood there, vibrant and chaotic, drawing the attention of art enthusiasts. As we walked closer, I could see people laughing and discussing its absurdity. I felt a slight tug at my heart, but I also felt empowered. Look at it, I said to Megan, my tone shifting from anger to reflection. This is what I was so angry about. It was just a painting, a representation of our struggles, but now it's just a piece of art. We stood together, observing the crowd's reactions, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. In that moment, it was no longer a symbol of betrayal, but rather a stepping stone toward healing. Megan intertwined her fingers with mine, and I could see the understanding in her eyes. We've come so far, she whispered. I nodded, feeling grateful for how much we had worked through together. I knew we still had a long way to go, but I was finally beginning to believe that we could weather the storm. As we left the gallery hand in hand, I felt lighter. I no longer felt like a prisoner to my anger or fear. Instead, I felt a sense of hope for the future, a future that was ours to shape, one day at a time. We had faced the worst together, and maybe, just maybe, we would come out stronger on the other side.